Welcome back to Around the Shoe on the Bill and Doug Show. Doug Lesmerises and Bill Landis, joined by two fantastic guests from our robust Ohio State football beat, Steve Helwagen of bucknuts.com, Tony Gerdeman of buckeyehuddle.com. Steve Helwagen, thank you for being here, brother. How long have you been around the Ohio State-Michigan game?
Well, I arrived here on campus, and I'm doing this from the lovely Panera here on Lane Avenue in the fall of 1986, and I've never left. They've never gotten rid of me yet. I think this will be like the 36th or 37th time I've seen the game in person. So I have spent like 5.5 days of my life, 57 years here on earth. A total of about 5.5 days have been spent in a stadium watching the Ohio State-Michigan game live and in person. So way too long, and probably my wife would tell you many more to come because I'm not allowed to retire just yet. So,
oh my gosh, I would read that book, My Week in the Game, The Life of Steve Helwagen. How about that?
Yeah, there's seen a couple campaigns, that's for sure, and more crazy endings and more, just stuff the stuff only surrounds one game a year, and this is it. This week, so it's crazy.
I love it. Steve Helwagen, thank you for being here. Tony Gerdeman, you are the first repeat guest on Around the Shoe. When I asked you to come on, I said, is it an honor or a bother? And you said what?
A little bit of both. So thanks for having me.
How long have you been around the game, Gerd?
Well, I grew up in Northwest Ohio, so probably since the day I was born, when you live up near the border, and you got Toledo. When I grew up, was as much Michigan as it was Ohio State, and I grew up south of Toledo, so basically, if you wanted to be a bad kid, you were a Michigan fan, and there are a lot of bad kids where I'm from, and so you grew up with it. And then I went to Ohio State, got there in '94, and was there for 5 games against Michigan. I went 2-3, which was good for a while. That was those are bragging rights. Then of course I've been covering the game. I've been writing Michigan Monday now. This is the 20th year I've been writing Michigan Monday, which is a game recap of what the Wolverines did, how it applies to their upcoming matchup against Ohio State. So been a while. Yep.
And I bet every time you sit down to write Michigan Monday, Gerd, you think to yourself, you're letting the bad kid out just a little bit on a Monday, right? Or maybe you're sticking it to the bad kids. Those Toledo memories come flooding back, I'm sure.
You know what? They're never far away, but you try to push them back. It's like, no. We can just operate as normal here. But yeah, so many bad kids.
Yeah. All right. Gerd will take care of you. Thanks to you guys again for being here. We're going to do 5 topics on Ohio State football all around the game. We'll chat about different things, and at the end, get to some of our most vivid memories from Ohio State, Michigan. Steve Helwagen, we'll start with you. First question: who is an offensive player for Ohio State who could swing this game on Saturday, who could have a big influence on it? We obviously know that we are all awaiting whether Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate will play. So you can go there. You can go somewhere else. Steve, who's your offensive player for the Buckeyes?
Well, you got to hope, if you're an Ohio State fan, that one or both of those guys is healthy and able to go. If they're not, then it's going to be, as we saw this past week against Rutgers, by committee, going to take a village approach. I mean, they spread the football around to a lot of different people. They've got 4 running backs right now who all seem to be in the flow and have played some of their best football lately, even though C.J. Donaldson's been banged up, and they seem like they're saving him in the number of tough short yardage plays he's going to have to convert will probably exponentially increase this week against the University of Michigan, as we've seen in years past. But I think the guy that I would go with is Max Clare. The Max Clare that we saw here this past Saturday against Rutgers, that is the Max Clare that we were promised last January when he signed on with the Buckeyes. 39-yard catch and run. I mean, running through space and time through the Rutgers secondary. I mean, that's what we paid for, that we wanted to see, was Max Clare having that kind of an impact. And up until now, it's just been little drips and drabs here and there. So I think he's a mismatch and a guy that really doesn't have a lot of plays on tape with Ohio State for to where Michigan's going to prepare too much for him. But certainly if Smith and Tate can't go, he's got to be a guy. And the other guy I'd think of is Bo Jackson. He's been this close, and I mean just this close to breaking the big one here a couple times. Rutgers got him on a shoestring. He was deep in the secondary, like a 15 or 16-yard run. And if he beats that guy, it's 50, 60 off to the races. So, boy, oh boy, if he can hit a big one like that in the Michigan game, that would change the tenor of the game, certainly. But if you put me to one, I would say Max Clare, with the proviso that you're hoping that Smith and or Tate, one of them at least can have a 6 for 100 kind of game.
Yeah, I'm just curious. Just so weird, Gerd, of like this continuing to hang over the team. Every analysis is like, well, if one plays, if two plays, if neither play, but who's your guy for offense, Gerd?
I did write down Bo Jackson, but I also wrote down, and this is maybe a cheap answer, but Julian Sayin, because I've watching the Maryland-Michigan game, watching Malik Washington, quarterback for Maryland, missing open receivers and missing several of them. If Julian Sayin is hitting his receivers, then I think this is a win for Ohio State. So it's sort of that thing where just do what you've been doing. Although the last 2 weeks they haven't been able to do it. 2 weeks in a row, Julian Sayin's under 200 yards. He's never even been under 300 yards 2 weeks in a row. And so without both of those guys, you've seen what's happened. But Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate haven't been playing for all of these other teams that are able to break open against Michigan. And if the quarterbacks would just hit their throws, then you'd see more big plays against Michigan because they're there to be made. And so I think is it the free space on the board to say Julian Sayin connecting downfield with the plays that are made available.
Yeah.
To me, that's the big thing. Just as Ryan Day says, do the routine things routinely. Make the plays that Michigan is giving you and take advantage of what few breaks you can get.
So can I just I don't know what to think about this. I was rewatching things again last night from last year, and we all know Will Howard took that hit right in the game, but the interception that he threw early on the sideline that was returned to the 4-yard line or whatever it was and set up Michigan's only touchdown. And then if you just go back and remind yourself of what Will Howard was going into the Michigan game, he became a Buckeye legend and a playoff monster. That 4-game run, I think that's what people have in their head of Will Howard. That's not really what he was at the time of the Michigan game. And that interception is such a bad interception, and it gave Michigan their only touchdown. And Gerd, like, I just, don't want to jinx anything. I have a hard time seeing Julian Sayin throwing that pick. You know what I mean? And I think when you're talking about the routine, like doing something out of the routine last year gave Michigan 7 points in a game where they scored 13 and won.
Well, and we saw Will Howard kind of throw another bad pass against Penn State earlier in the season.
Yeah.
When you look at what Julian Sayin, his interceptions, 2 of them have been just being really greedy against overmatched opponents in the end zone. One Grambling State, one whichever one where he threw back across. Purdue. I knew he shouldn't have done it. And then Ohio, one gets tipped at the line, and another one against Ohio where he's basically getting hit as he's throwing. The ball goes up. Probably should have been a fumble instead. So there's not been really this, like, what are you doing? There's probably the what are you doing throws from Julian Sayin can be counted on 3 fingers this year. I think where it's, the accuracy is one thing, but the decision making is another one where you'd see it from Will Howard a couple times a game, like, what is this? Saw it from Kyle McCord, of course, but we haven't really seen it from Julian Sayin. And for it to start now, I mean, this is the biggest game he's played in since Texas, but he was the more composed quarterback against Texas. So what are we going to see on Saturday?
Let me throw in real quick.
Yeah, thanks, Stevie.
What Sayin is doing is just, unprecedented, uncanny. I mean, 79% lead the nation in completion percentage, and then also in efficiency. And he has thrown to exactly 1 interception, correct, in 8 Big Ten games. Is that what I'm being told? one interception in 8 Big Ten games.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know how many quarterbacks in the history of the Big Ten Conference have started every one of their teams' conference games, whether it was 8 games or 9 games, throughout a season and come through it with one interception. It's got to be a record of some sort for guys who have started the entire conference season for their team to come through that season with just one interception in conference play. I mean, that's I don't know who else could possibly have done that. I don't know. That's just incredible.
I can give you 2 quick names. J.J. McCarthy and Drew Aller in 2023. They did it, but they didn't throw much.
They did it with 0?
No, they both won.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Gerd, on record, Julian saying the next J.J. McCarthy. What high praise from Gerd. Talking about
Minnesota is going to need a quarterback pretty soon.
But Bill, is it sacrilegious to be actually going into the Michigan game last year? Will Howard was good, but I don't think he's where Julian Sayin is now. And they did come out throwing a little bit last year, and he kind of forced a throw to Emeka Egbuka on 3rd down on the first drive that led to a field goal. He threw the pick on the second drive. The third drive ended on kind of a weird 3rd down throw to Carnell Tate that was incomplete that led to a missed field goal. And for all the why didn't they throw to the playmakers more? Will Howard kind of tried too early and wasn't that great at it. And I actually think Julian Sayin in this situation, the way he's played this year, it's reasonable to expect that he would just be a little bit better at that.
He's significantly more accurate than Will Howard. And again, this is turning into the let's trash Will Howard.
I know.
It wasn't his. He got knocked out. He should have been playing, first of all.
But this was the 3 drives before he threw the near pick before he got knocked out.
And then he threw another pick later in the game after he got knocked out. Yeah. But no, throughout last season, his accuracy kind of came and went. There were many plays throughout the year where the ball just kind of came out of his hand weird and went sideways and just what is that exactly? And then to your point, he figured it all out in the playoff and he's a legend and he was great. But no, Ohio State, I guess probably 23 and 24 did not get the level of quarterback play that it needs to win this game. And I have confidence, I think the rest of you guys do, that it probably will this time around. Frankly, even if Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate don't play, because the one thing in this ongoing conversation that I thought was at least a good sign against Rutgers was that Julian Sayin looked a little more comfortable, wasn't explosive, had the opportunity to throw that one deep to Brandon Inniss that he didn't throw, but was more accurate in that game and just seemed like a little less kind of sped up against Rutgers than he did against UCLA. So it did seem like he was building some comfort in a world where maybe he doesn't have Jeremiah and Carnell, even though everyone's hoping that he does on Saturday.
Okay. Will Howard, great job, by the way.
Yeah.
Just let me be the first to say, Will Howard, hey, man, great job. I really think the fans liked it. Bill, you got a player?
I do have a player, but I want it before. Gerd, do you have your Michigan tight end stat handy about what tight ends have done against them this year? Because I thought Max Clare was a good call by Steve. I did look up. Michigan this year has allowed the 3rd most receiving yards to a tight end in the Power 4, but then Gerd has had another stat from Michigan that was interesting.
Well, yeah, I went through and looked at all of the starting tight ends that have played in Michigan, and so 4 of them set season highs in catches against Michigan. 3 of them set season high in yards against Michigan, and 3 of them set season high in touchdowns against Michigan. And they opened up the season against New Mexico. That dude went 10 catches, 71 yards, 2 touchdowns. Oklahoma's went 5 for 69. Nebraska 7 for 60. USC had their two starting tight ends went 4 for 83 combined. And then you even had Northwestern a couple weeks ago go 4 for 81. Maryland's tight end would have gone. He only went 3 for 19 for 1, but he also dropped some passes. So there's an avenue there.
Okay.
Yeah. So that Max Clare was front of mind for me for sure. But for the sake of naming another player, I'll go on the O-line. I'll go Carson Hinsman, who I think has not played all that well in 2 starts against Michigan in 2023 and 2024. But he's also the only guy really up front who has any kind of extensive experience playing in the big house. Phil Daniels played special team snaps there last year for Minnesota. Tegra Shabola and Luke Montgomery played a couple of special team snaps in 2023 in that game. But going through the entire sort of offensive slate on the O-line, Carson's the only one who's done that. We all know how important the center is to making those calls and getting things ID'd. And we know, Michigan's probably going to try to junk some things up on its front. So there's sort of there's the command of the center that I'm interested in and just sort of giving everyone on the same page. But I also think he's got to play better than he's played in the last 2 games against Michigan, because the last thing that Ohio State needs is Julian saying with guys running in his face all game.
That makes sense. And he was talking a little bit about that after the game, like that he's been after the Rutgers game, that he's been through this a little bit. I'll go with Tegra Shabola. Like, do we think it's possible that right guard blows up the Ohio State offense in the game? Steve, like, is that still where we are? That like, I don't know if he's turned around chasing guys who are running towards the quarterback, this could be a problem, or is it going to be fine, Steve?
I thought they pulled him on merit against UCLA. I think that Van Sickle got in there and did a bang-up job, I thought. And then if you look at the touchdown run that Bo Jackson had, it was the wingback, the tight end, and Shabola, who kind of opened up the hole, and the other tight end coming across hit the linebacker in the hole to free up Jackson to go for the touchdown. So to me, he played a little bit better, I guess, against Rutgers. And, I guess we'll see what they go with. I can't imagine they want to jockey too many move guys in and out in that game. My goodness, this will be his 3rd time playing against them. So I think you go with that.
It's just weird, Gerd. I feel like we've talked about it all year. And then Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith got hurt. And it's like, right guard's fine. Who cares about that? It's like, well, the receivers aren't playing. But is it still a thing? Or not, because I know on our shows, we've been waiting with bated breath for the return of Josh Padilla, and then he was in uniform standing on the sideline without his helmet, didn't come close to getting in the game against Rutgers. How can they play him much against Michigan? Is it going to be fine?
Well, I think as you look at the weak link of the offense, whatever, and the weak link in the defense, you're going to have to attack it. And I think that's what you'll see from Wink Martindale, where you just overpower that right guard spot and try to create something and get into Julian Sand's face. And one of my other keys for Michigan's defense is that the interior of the defensive line. If they're not getting to the quarterback, just get your hands up, tip some balls in the air, and try to create some turnovers there. But yeah, I would not be surprised if they just keep running at Tegra just to see what can happen, because we've seen enough success from just one guy going at it there. So what happens when they throw in another, and then you mentioned Carson Hinsman. What happens if he starts feeling like he needs to help out there? And then that kind of just starts creating just an effect where now everybody on the interior is worried about one particular position because it keeps getting beaten. And now I don't think if you put Gabe Van Sickle in there, are they going to now avoid it? No, I think they're going to go at it even harder.
Yeah, no, that's true. Okay, well, we've been talking about it all year. Landis, question number 2, defensive player. Ohio State defensive player that you think could really swing the game.
You're starting with me, not with Gerd.
Oh, no, I guess Gerd's really been on it. He's talked a lot, but we'll start with Gerd. Okay. It is actually his turn. Sorry, bad hosting by me. Gerd, defensive player.
I don't know. I should have started with Bill.
I don't know. All of them?
Interesting. Well, that's the thing. There are so many guys.
The prize questions always get you, don't they?
Yeah. You should have given me some clips or some notes on this. But as you look like over all of this defense, any of these guys could be the guy. For me, I'll go ahead and go with Caden Curry, who could be their best pass rusher and also one of their best run defenders, who can create turnovers, as we've seen, can bring the running back down on the backside. Like if they're trying to run away from him, he can get there. For some reason, he's really good at and he can cover the flats when he sees a pass going out there. He can read screens. He can do so many different things. So if I'm going first, I'm taking Caden Curry because of all of the things that he can do. And you have seen some defensive ends have some success against Michigan's tackles, both right tackle and left tackle. The Michigan offensive line, I think they finally, for the last 4 games, have the same offensive line. They've been dealing with some injuries. They've got some young guys in there. But I like Caden Curry in his last go-round, trying to get his gold pants and creating some problems for Michigan.
Young guy at left tackle, right? After the injury there. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Is Evan Link going to come back for this game, though?
I thought he was out for the season. So
I wasn't sure. Okay. Yeah.
All right.
Could be.
All right, Bill. Now, actually, to you, defensive guy.
I'll go. My mind first went to edge, whether that's Caden Curry, Keanu Jackson, or Arvell Reese rushing. I'll go Sonny Styles. And this is thinking that he needs to be the guy that sort of keeps a 4-yard run to a 4-yard run, right? Like if Jordan Marshall, who I expect to play against Ohio State, is back in there after not playing last week for Michigan, he's capable of doing some of the things we've seen from Justice Haynes this year, which is just like you find that crease, you make one guy miss, and all of a sudden what should be merely an efficient run turns into an explosive run. And Sonny Styles has been overshadowed quite a bit by Arvell Reese this year. I actually think if we're able to separate it and think of Arvell Reese as more of sort of like an on-ball line of scrimmage defender and Sonny Styles as more of just like a traditional in-the-box linebacker, Sonny's probably been the best linebacker in the country this year. There is one linebacker in all of FBS that has played 400 snaps and not missed a tackle, and it is Sonny Styles. He's been excellent this year, and we just don't talk about him, and he's like very understated as a player. He needs to get Jordan Marshall on the ground in this game, and it will be a collective effort. Tackling always is, but I think he needs to be the one who is spearheading that.
Wow. I like that. We see it all last few years where it's that fourth quarter where Michigan finally breaks free with the running game, and watching Michigan this year, whether it was Justice Haynes or Jordan Marshall, it's so much of it is just the missed tackles or losing leverage, and like they shouldn't have gone 50 yards. But there was nobody there, and for Sonny Styles to be that guy, I think is key as well.
So I'm going to go with Davison Igbinosun, who played an excellent game last week, and Michigan actually does have some receivers who can threaten you now, which is not always the case in this game. And trying to shut down Andrew Marsh can matter. But I know we've had this question on our Substack, and if people want to subscribe to our Substack, by the way, billanddougosu.substack.com. There's some people wondering, if Ohio State wins, not to get ahead of anything, will Ohio State try to plant a flag? And if there is an attempted flag planting, who is the most likely flag planter? And why is it Davison Igbinosun? And so this is, if it's like lock down Andrew Marsh and then start a brawl, this guy is ready for the history book, because he picked one off last week, jumped in the stands, threw the ball in the stands, and then it got called back by a penalty. So this man is ready to play at a high level and celebrate at a high level. And I think we could see Davison Igbinosun get ready to be in the highlight clips for the game for the next 50 years for the level of play and the level of post game. Is anybody with me on this? Iggy?
Yeah. He'd be a good
guy.
candidate, no doubt. And, it's funny, that whole thing way back in the day with, what was it? Charles Woodson and David Boston, I think, were squaring off. I mean, think about that matchup that we were treated to in the 90s. And like Woodson, takes his helmet off. And by that point, if you take your helmet off on the field of play, that's supposed to be 15. And they didn't penalize him for that. So yeah, any rate, you're coming to me for mine.
Steve with 25-year-old grievances. We're checking in. We're ready this week.
27 years. But I agree on that. And I think that Matthews coming off a game with those 2 personal foul penalties going against these decent receivers, or not personal foul, but pass interference. That's a little troubling, I think. But my guys would be, I use guys, it's the collection of Edric Houston, Tywone Malone, and certainly Caden McDonald at the 2 defensive tackle positions, because, I don't look for Bryce Underwood to throw for 300 yards in this game. I think Michigan, in recent years has outrushed Ohio State, and I think they've got the guys with Marshall, and I don't know how to pronounce this, Kudzul, however it's pronounced. He had 100. Yeah, he had a 100-yard game this past week against Maryland, so he is ready to go as well. They've got 2 pretty good backs if Marshall's healthy, and I think that everything Ohio State's done defensively has begun with Caden McDonald crashing and getting a hand on the runner at the line of scrimmage and holding them up, and then everybody else comes in and makes the play. But he's played at an All-American level, to my way of thinking. Certainly first team All Big Ten. So I think Caden McDonald is the guy that's got to set the tone early. That no, you're not going to run on Ohio State this year.
Gerd,
we didn't say Arvell Reese.
What's his name again?
Arvell Reese.
Arnie Reese. Yeah, well, he's just gonna. I mean, like
he's
you
just
kind of
understood.
understand Bill,
Yeah.
and he set the world on fire, became the people's number one pick in the draft, and then they've kind of maybe just like not activated him the past couple games, and so I think we simultaneously you're nodding your head, Gerd. Like, did I just call you nerd instead of Gerd?
You did.
Did I just say nerd is godding his head?
Thank you for taking me back to the 4th grade all over again. Appreciate it, Doug. Good night, everybody.
Gerd is nodding his head. The combination of like they've just like we take his greatness for granted already, even though he just jumped on the scene this year, and also it just kind of they haven't maybe called on him as much the past couple games. But Gerd, he's kind of floating over everything happening with this defense, right?
Well, and I think he's the guy he's your spy for Bryce Underwood, and at some point the spy becomes the attacker, where you just all right now go get him, and you've got the leverage, go get him. And try to keep him from getting outside, because he will pick up 3rd downs on the run. And they were 12 of 14 against Maryland on 3rd downs.
Yeah,
and that's
my gosh.
Yeah. If they do that again against Ohio State, you all know what's going to happen. But I think you're going to see him kind of like as the maybe similar to the Texas game where he exploded, where he's the spy. He's just blowing up left tackles and right tackles and doing rivalry stuff. And I am interested to see what Matt Patricia rolls out for this one against a true freshman quarterback, even though that true freshman quarterback has now played 11 games.
Yeah.
You've seen veteran quarterbacks have issues with Matt Patricia's defense. And then Doug, real quick on the flag planting, how much of the seatbelt celebration do you think is prepared IGB for that? Is that
it's right in front of us. It's been hiding in plain sight the whole time. It's like, is it a seatbelt? Is he putting a sword in its sheath? And it's like, no, it's a pre-flag plant. And they were like, oh, it's a seatbelt. And I think the only reason it wouldn't be IGB is if Jermaine Matthews rips the flag out of his hand first and does it himself. Like those two corners will be battling for it. It's not an official question, but do we think a flag plant with the win is on the table, or would Ryan Day say, like, make sure we don't do that? Like, we want to put all that behind us.
Ryan Day might do it. What do you mean?
Threaten my family.
Don't you want to be above it? No, you're not above it.
He'll plant a flag at the 50 with the logo of his brother's PI firm, and just said, like, suck it, Michigan. Like, yeah, that'd be great. My nominee would be the Steelers are home on Sunday, but Jack Sawyer running through the tunnel like the Ultimate Warrior. Yeah, coming down the ramp. He's going to do it. Yeah.
Tassel arms, face painted, Sawyer 33 jersey.
Yeah.
I do think, like, again, planting a flag on turf is silly. So you also maybe want to bring some dirt, maybe a pot of some sort,
or a holder, a holder to put it in. Yeah. Like out on your patio.
Ryan Day's on the 50, like a dad at the beach trying to put up a canopy, and then the players come over and put the flag.
Yeah. All right. Everything about this week is routine, but we are throwing in a Friday meeting about who's carrying the pot, who's carrying the flag, how we're going to plant it. Let's make sure we have a flag planting strategy in case the Buckeyes win. Bill, question number 3, starting with you. 100-point scale. For this game, I would say, this game for Ohio State on Saturday, what part of it is mental, emotional, like that kind of thing that will determine it for Ohio State, and how much of it is just the football, the scheme, the talent for this Saturday? How much of an emotional, mental game is it?
Yeah, I'm leaning more football and scheme here. Actually, I think I might go like 70% on that end of it, and maybe 30% of the mental, emotional. That's always a component, but Gerd sort of touched on it, like. What's Matt Patricia going to have in his bag for Bryce Underwood in this offense, right? Like there can be, and the same is true, like, the Connor Stallion stuff like hovers over all of this, right? What's happened the last couple of years in the rivalry. But what also is true is that, like, Jim Harbaugh hired some really good defensive coordinators who gave Ohio State a lot of problems schematically. And I think that Matt Patricia can show up here and do the same thing for Ohio State. And then, on the other side, that matchup will continue. And then, there's the personnel matchups of whether or not Carnell and Jeremiah play, and then how the offense may or may not change if one does or both can't, or whatever that looks like. So it's a lot of football for me in this game. Not dismissing the mental, emotional part of it because it is there, but I think it is more about scheme and matchups.
I'm close to that. I'm 60% football talent scheme, 40% mental emotional. But the hard part of it is like, how does the mental emotional prevent you from activating the scheme? That, of course, it's all the same thing. That, I mean, if you looked at last year's, like, why would you say? What would you say it was last year, right? It's like, well, it felt like maybe they could have done some other things that they chose not to do for some reason. They had to have a meeting about it, and then injury stuff happened, right? So I do think maybe what Ryan Day is trying to do with this whole routine thing is like lower that mental emotional percentage as much as possible, because they believe if it is on the talent, the football, the scheme, they're the better team. And so I'm not sure he doesn't want that to be close to 90-10, but I'll say 60-40 in favor of the football. Steve Helwagen, what's your breakdown on this?
I think it's got to be 80-20 football and scheme and talent. It's got to be clinical. You can't that emotional gets you to the starting blocks. Okay. It gets you to game day. It gets you through the tough, things back in February, where it's 6 a.m. and you're out there, doing, calisthenics and whatever to get ready for the season and spring football or whatever, and start the climb back up the mountain. Everything that happened in July with running in the heat and everything else, that emotional gets you through all that. But at this point, you put that aside and you have to focus and really only concern yourself with what your job is and going out and executing your job. And if you can't do that, if you take a bad personal foul penalty because you're mad at somebody or whatever, you're letting emotions play you, then you're going to lose your team the game is more likely what's going to happen. So to me, I'm thinking it's 80-20. You're clinical. You just go out and you do your business. You knock them down, you pick them up, you knock them down, you pick them up, and you just keep doing it over and over and over. And eventually you win the game.
Okay. All right, Gerd, time for your math.
Well, I think it's kind of like the crazy hot matrix where at the start it's all talent. And then as the game goes on and maybe it's a little closer, then it gets a little crazier and the craziness rises. But I'll to not repeat an answer, I'll say 75-25 talent. And then, but as the game goes on and the score is close, then that 25 can continue to rise and rise. But I also think Matt Patricia comes into this game. He's like, I'm undefeated against Michigan. I don't know about, I do know about you all, but I've never lost to these guys. I'm not planning on starting now. Do you think he's going to lose to a freshman quarterback? I'm sure he would love to be facing a freshman quarterback in this game. If you told him at the outset of the season, like, hey, against Michigan, if you come here against Michigan, we want to win this game, you'll be facing a true freshman quarterback. Cool. Sign me up. Let's do it. I never got to face a freshman quarterback in the pros. You're only getting fourth and fifth year college guys as rookies at the very least. And so now, I'm sure he's all fired up about that. And you've got a defense, guys that can do whatever you ask. And they talked about, Sonny talked about how easy it is to learn from him. So they can show stuff that they haven't shown all year in this one if they want to. And then they probably will at some point. But 75-25 with a lot of the 75 being on the defense, because you just tackle and be sound. And I think you're going to be okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Question number 4. This is like wide open. What is the best thing about the Ohio State-Michigan rivalry in your mind? This is just letting us chat about the game. And I was thinking about this last night, and Steve bringing up Charles Woodson and David Boston kind of reinforced this for me. To me, and it's obviously specific to the game, but it's a little bit broader. It just is such an easy, natural way to connect yourself to your own history. That if you didn't have the Ohio State-Michigan game, when would Ohio State fans of today just bring up David Boston? Right? When would you just bring up Rex Kern or Jack Tatum? Or when would you just bring up Beanie Wells? Right? That it allows you to connect to your past through this game, that it's not even really about Michigan necessarily with what I'm talking about, but you don't have to, it's not like, oh, we're honoring the 25th anniversary of some team and they're going to come out and stand between at the first time out of the second quarter, and everyone's going to cheer for him, right? Like it's not forced. It's just natural. And so I think for all of us to connect to our past is a very important thing. And then it makes me think, like, if you're Penn State and you're not rivaled or that kind of thing, it's like, when do you do that? Like, when do you connect to your past? When do you appreciate your past? When do you tell stories? And I would imagine, like, Thanksgiving week, right? You get together with friends and family, and it's Ohio State, Michigan. I'm sure people are saying, like, oh man, I remember this game. We're going to do our most vivid memories. And it gives us a reason to talk about Troy Smith. If there wasn't a Michigan rivalry, when would we talk about Troy Smith? For no reason, right? Would it just come up? So I think it's that opportunity that's about yourself. It's about Ohio State fans connecting to the 100-year history of this through this game that it just happens, man. Steve, you've been around a lot. What's the best thing about this rivalry?
Oh, there are a lot of great things about it. I mean, up until the last decade or so, it was not Thanksgiving weekend. Obviously, with the change in the schedule and the calendar, it's now Thanksgiving weekend. And that makes it easier for 3 generations of families to be sitting in the family room with the game on television, and they're all spending quality time together. And, it's our way of life against their way of life. Basically, it's Ohio, which is like the garden spot of the world, against this dark, dire, cold, dank place that they call Michigan. And that's just it just is what it is. I mean, part of my feeling about Michigan is clouded by the fact that we usually go there the last Saturday of November or for a winter time basketball game, and it's never above 30 degrees, and there's usually an inch of snow or 2 on the ground. So I've never been there at this quote pure Michigan thing they talk about, where you got squirrels and leaves and nice little lakes and whatever. I've never seen any of that. I've seen potholes on the road. I've seen just a dire, awful, dank place. And so to me, I think for Ohio people, and for an Ohio State player, you're not an Ohio State legend unless you did something important in the game. Here's Archie Griffin. He never lost to him. He was 3-0-1. You had, guys who had great careers at Ohio State, but they couldn't beat Michigan. So they're not regarded at the same level as some of the legends who did pull it off, in the past. I mean, Troy Smith was 3-0 as the starting quarterback for Ohio State against Michigan. I mean, granted, they went on and lost the national championship game, but, that kind of hangs in his lore, certainly. And when these players get back together and meet, they compare, oh, yeah, I was 3-1 against him. Oh, really? I was 4-0. I mean, think about all them Tressel kids from 2004 all the way to 2010. They all went 4-0. I mean, it was just boom, 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 one class after another. That's what Ohio State needs to get back to, certainly. 6 years. I wrote it down here somewhere. 2,191 days on Saturdays will be since 2019 when they beat them. And so the time has come, they won the national championship last year. Time to check another box.
Wait, I thought 2,100 and whatever days. I thought that was how long Steve Helwagen has spent watching the Ohio State Michigan game in his life. I got confused on the numbers.
Yeah, pretty close. 2,000 hours.
Yeah. Bill, what a great invite we extended this week to have Steve Helwagen grace us with his presence here for Ohio State Michigan.
Oh, we're trying.
Gerd, what do you like the best about this thing?
Well, I think one of the fun things is you look forward to it all year long. It happens at one point in the year, and you look forward to it, and yet you can also talk about it in June, and you can talk about it at any point. Like you look forward to Christmas all year long, and then if somebody's like in June wants to talk to you about Christmas, you'd be like, dude, it's June, leave me alone. I don't need to talk about that. We could talk about Michigan any day of the week, the rivalry any day of the week. And you just look forward to it all year long. And then you live with the results, and it's either, basking for a year, or you're in constant pain for a year about it. Or however much pain you choose to accept. And some choose to accept a lot, and it's funny, like the people who accept the pain often can't deal with it. So it's like, maybe just don't accept the pain. Maybe just, choose not to accept it. It's like, no. I want this, and I want people to know I'm hurting, and I want people to feel the same pain that I am feeling. But I like it because it's once a year, and yet it's also year round.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of things like that.
Yeah. Don't talk to Gerd about Christmas in June. Just everybody be advised. He's going to say, no, but how will Ohio State block Michigan's tackle? That is a worthy June topic, right? Makes complete sense. Landis,
how are you going to deal with Bryce Underwood as a sophomore?
Yeah, exactly.
I agree with everything you guys said.
He
will be better. He will be better. Yeah, you're worried about it already. You got to play the first one first. You got to play the first time. I, like Steve, have also never seen the sunshine in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Just saying. I think for me, it's just like the feeling walking into the stadium. I don't like, and wherever the game is, there's nothing like it. And you guys have been doing this longer than I have, but like, in the decade, a little bit plus that I've been covering Ohio State, like I got to cover 2 national championships and big bowl games and really cool games, and none of them come close to feeling like what it feels like walking into the shoe or the big house on the morning of this game, and the whole place like dripping with anxiety and rage. And you get like, they're so close, and the fans do a good job of traveling that there's not just like a smattering of Michigan fans in the shoe or just a smattering of Ohio State fans in the big house. Like, it's a pretty good contingent of the opposing fan base there. It just like creates this wholly unique environment that I don't know if it exists in other places in the sport. Like I've never gone to an Iron Bowl, don't really care to, but I just can't imagine it holds up to what Ohio State Michigan is. So like, for someone who didn't I didn't grow up in it, I never, I watched it on television and appreciated it, but then like covering the first one in 14 and being able to cover, I think this will be my 11th now. I'm just looking forward to walking into the stadium again and kind of getting that feeling, because there truly is nothing like it.
Love it. All right, last thing, Steve, we'll start with you again. Your most vivid memories of the game, memories, the things like, oh, that's etched in my mind, whether it's something you covered, something you watched when you were younger. What is it?
So many of them. I mean, growing up here in Ohio, in Central Ohio, you only got 2 or 3 games on television every year, but you were assured you were going to get the Michigan game. So you're watching Woody and his antics out there in the 70s, tearing up a yard marker. I mean, it was real. I mean, it was just like the doggonest thing. And then I got here in 86, and the first year Ohio State was 0-2 in football that year. They lost to Alabama and Washington to start the season, and they were 0-2 for the first time since 1896. And then they reeled off 9 wins in a row. And this is Chris Spielman, Chris Carter, Jim Carsados at quarterback, and they're playing Michigan. I can see the stadium right out the window here at Panera, and Jim Harbaugh guaranteed the victory in 1986. And he came in here and he faked like he couldn't get his signals out, and the officials stopped the game. It may have even been a 5-yard penalty at the time if the crowd was too loud. I mean, it was ridiculous. They turn off the play clock. I mean, it was like you could just run the play whenever you're ready to run it type thing. It was weird, whatever the rules were at that time. And so you had that gamesmanship, and Jamie Morris ran for over 200 yards. Chris Spielman had 29 tackles, and Ohio State kicked a field goal in the final minute, and it was wide left, I believe, 47-yard field goal. And the announcer comes on, Michigan takes over, Ohio State's out of timeouts, Michigan's going to win the game. He goes, Cotton Bowl tickets will be available at the Ohio Union on Monday. I mean, they're playing to go to the Rose Bowl, and the game isn't even over yet, and this guy's hawking Cotton Bowl tickets. I mean, it was surreal, and the game took 4 hours to play. It was 33 degrees. There was like fog coming in off the river. I mean, it was just a surreal situation. It was the first time I'd ever been to a game like that. And then so many more like that over the years. 1 versus 2 in 2006. That was an incredible scene. It gets lost in history because neither team went on from there and did anything with it. Michigan lost to USC, I think, in the Rose Bowl, and Ohio State got stomped by Florida in the national championship game. So it didn't mean anything. You want to win. In 2002, it had been over 30 years since Ohio State had won national championship. And it had been, everybody knew all the problems Coop had. Well, here's Tressel in his first home game against Michigan, and they barely squeak it out, 14-9. And when Will Allen intercepts the pass from John Navarro on the last play of the game, it was a spontaneous. They came, and as Andy Geiger said, when they redid the stadium, it was now like an 8 or 10 foot drop to get from the first row down to the thing. That didn't matter. Those people came from every direction. It was a spontaneous, everybody meet in the middle moment. And Ohio State was going to the national championship to play Miami 6 weeks from now in the Fiesta Bowl. And that was the most unbridled, just deliriousness. I mean, they're carrying Craig Krenzel off the field, I mean, they're holding up bags of Tostitos. I mean, it was the craziest field rush that I can recall, that he catches this pass and then within 20 seconds the field is full of people. And you're like, I hope Michigan was able to get off the field. I hope they started running when the ball was in the air. So yeah, a lot of memories.
Let's get out of here. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of memories. And of course, one that really stands out, one of the best teams Ohio State had, 1995, Eddie George wins the Heisman Trophy, and they go up to Michigan and lose 31-23. And here's Lloyd Carr. I think he was the interim coach that year because they'd fired Gary Moeller, before the season. And we're driving out of the stadium in the parking lot, and the news comes across they've made Lloyd Carr the permanent head coach just because he won that game. They weren't any good that year. They were like 7-5 or something. But, you win that game, you're a legend. So that's the ultimate. And I think Woodson, as a freshman that year, may have had 1 or 2 interceptions too. So, yeah, just crazy stuff.
Crazy. We could go all day.
Yeah, we could.
We could.
Well, I was at that 95 game as a student, and I think Tim Biakabatuka scored all of his touchdowns in the same end zone that I was sitting.
313 yards. Yeah.
That's an indelible, but I'll give you 2 for vastly different reasons. And we were all at both of these games. 2016, just being on the field level for the overtimes, because we get down there and, towards the end of the game and you're watching it go back and forth, and then being in the corner where Curtis Samuel scored and being in that same area where JT Barrett clearly picks up the first down, no controversy there. But just experiencing that and watching Urban the entire time, watching his reactions to all of this. And that gets shown constantly, the Curtis Samuel touchdown, seeing it happen. You can see this is a touchdown just by the way the defense has approached it. And then for a vastly different reason, one that I will never, ever forget, it was 2017 when Urban Meyer came into the post-game room after the win saying, a cameraman injured my quarterback and I will not rest until I find out who this is. And I was at the Ozone at the time, and I was terrified that it was Ozone legend, late, great Jim Davidson that had somehow injured JT Barrett and being responsible in some way for that. So that
wouldn't
I
put
was
it
worried
past
about
him.
that. Well, he said it wasn't him, but that was a big time concern. But that whole game was also very interesting to see Dwayne Haskins come out there and win that one. So those two games are they're certainly up there.
Man, there's a lot of them. Bill, what do you got?
Oh, yeah. Two jump out for me. The one is just Justin Fields coming out of the medical tent and throwing that touchdown to Garrett Wilson in 2019. That game was not particularly close, but at that moment, it was still like a little bit in the balance, and that was just like hero ball stuff. A guy coming out of the tent and not really throwing a touchdown, but like having to actually like sprint out to his left and then pivot on the knee that he had just injured and then throw the touchdown was pretty crazy. And then yes, 16 for me as well for very different reasons. I was not on the field. I was in the press box with one they won story and one they lost story on my screen, trying to figure out which one had to be published. And it is probably the most anxious is probably the right word for it. I don't know, like terrified I've been as like, and I was still that was my third OSU Michigan in my third year on the beat. I was still fairly young and new at this and like figuring things out, and like not knowing how to like process and write about a loss to Michigan, and 2, having really no idea what was going to happen as I was trying to figure out which story to publish. Something I'll never forget.
Just to throw in, the Ohio State, you're not allowed to lose a game, as Ryan Day says. Just try losing one and see what the reaction is. Like, he's won the national championship, and yet if he loses this game on Saturday, the people are going to be coming out of the woodwork. the lunatic fringe, and they're going to be like, this guy doesn't get it. He's not one of us. He's got to go. And you're like, dude, he's leading the best football program in America that's going right now. So, calm down. But the tension of these overtimes in these half-to-half games, which for every Ohio State game is every time it's ever happened. I remember one against NC State against Phillip Rivers in 2003, I think, 2003. They went to triple overtime. And you're sitting there and your heart is just pounding out of your chest with every play that happens. You're like, my God, this is the entirety of the world is hinging on this next play. Just amp that up for 2 versus 3 in Michigan versus Ohio State. I mean, that day was incredible. Just an incredible day.
We did get to 49 minutes and 26 seconds before the first lunatic fringe mention on this show. So
let's get ready.
Everybody. So just 2 quick ones for me. My first Ohio State Michigan game was the first one that I covered. I did not grow up in Ohio. I did not it was not a thing for me. I wasn't locked in to the Ohio State Michigan game. So 2005 in Ann Arbor, that I can see Anthony Gonzalez in my head. I always the helicopter catch up going. I just thought when that throw was made, I thought that was a Heisman winner to a congressman. I bet that's what that's going to be. So I have a terrible memory, but I can see Anthony Gonzalez in my head catching that pass from Troy Smith to set up the final touchdown. And then it's weird. This is almost like a false memory, but I know it actually happened. But when Ohio State won in 2007 in Ann Arbor, and they all were climbing into the stands with the parents with roses in their mouths because they thought they had locked up a Rose Bowl berth. And then everything exploded in college football, and they wound up going to the national championship game in the Sugar Bowl against LSU instead. But at that time, they hadn't been to the Rose Bowl in a while. And so I feel like I was just down there in that part where they were climbing up, and it was like, man, Ohio State just beat Michigan to go to the Rose Bowl. This is Woody and Bo stuff. And there's no, they're going to play Glenn Dorsey in New Orleans.
The Red Sea parted. They needed 7 teams to lose, and 8 of them lost or something. I mean, it was just nuts. I mean, they were sitting 8th. They needed 6 teams in front of them to lose, and all 7 of the teams in front of them lost. So it was ridiculous.
So, can I give you another perhaps false memory that perfectly encapsulates this rivalry? In 1996, for Senior Day, my recollection is as Greg Belisari is being announced with his family, Lloyd Carr sends the team out, and they just run over Greg Belisari through this.
Yep.
And that's,
that was ridiculous. I was on the field.
Tear down the banner. So that's how I remember it. I don't know if that's actually what happened, but Steve was there, so I was there as well.
13-9, and they didn't obviously score a touchdown. They got down inside the 5-yard line 2 or 3 times and had to kick chip shot field goals, and you settle for that. And of course, it was Sean Springs, one of the best cornerbacks the school has ever produced, slipped on an easy 10-yard route to Ty Streets, and Ty Streets was gone, 70 yards, whatever it was. So that was a bitter pill. I can remember our office was in Grandview. I worked for Buckeye Sports Bulletin, and we're going over that bridge to go over into Grandview, and the sun is setting, and it's 40 degrees. It's a perfect day. And I just looked at the person next to me and I said, look at this day. Would you just look at this? Is a beautiful, perfect day in November. The sun is still out here about 4:30 in the afternoon. And these guys just ruined it. I mean, just ruined it. I mean, they were supposed to be, that took them out of the national. They would have won the national championship if they win that game and then go on and beat Arizona State in the Rose Bowl, because the winner, Florida, with Werfel, they had 1 loss. They had, that cost them the national championship. So,
my God,
driving over that bridge, they just ruined it.
Wow.
This was a perfect day. And everybody remembers Andy Geiger too. My thought about him, we're going back up to the press box, making our walk back there down the other end of the field. Here's Andy going to the north end of the stadium. He's got his heavy coat on, and he's got his head down, and he's just trudging along like he can't believe, what's going on. But that was welcome to the rivalry, Andy. It's going to be like that quite a bit.
So I hope everyone has a beautiful Saturday. Man alive. Steve Helwagen and Tony Gerdeman, thank you so much for joining us here on this episode of Around the Shoes. Steve, where can the folks find you? How can they keep up with your coverage of the Buckeyes?
Yeah, just bucknuts.com is where we're at. And, we're trying to stay on top of everything happening this week. And, it is fabulous week. Hope everybody has a great Thanksgiving and safe holiday weekend. And if you're going up to Ann Arbor, generally they don't harass the opposing fans a whole lot. I've seen Ohio State people kicked and knocked down up there before for being acting out of pocket. But, I tell people, wear your Ohio State stuff underneath your coat, wear your heavy coat. Then when you're at your seat, take it off, cheer for your team. Then when you're done, put it back on and walk to your car. That way you can go to school or work on Monday. So that's my advice. When you go to some of these places like Penn State, Wisconsin, they're just, really boorish sometimes. In Michigan to a point, but not always.
Okay. Good advice from Steve Helwagen. Gerd, where can the folks find your coverage?
One real quick, not to make this show too long, but in terms of dealing with the fans in Ann Arbor, if you do go, when I was a college student, there was, as we're leaving the stadium, there's like a 9 and 10-year-old brother and sister flipping us off and laughing at us, and cops just watching it. And then the cops offering, hey, we got some free roses for anybody that wants them, because Ohio State lost their chance at the Rose Bowl. So just some good natured stuff if you go up there. Yeah. But you can find me at buckeyehuddle.com, the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. You can find that on YouTube and all of your audio podcast platforms of choice. We've got like, no lie, like 25 shows scheduled this week, breaking the game down from all different kinds of angles.
As Ohio State fans, their motto ought to be, we survived the 1990s. We can survive anything. And, these last 4 years are just kind of part-time compared to what people went through in the 1990s.
It's true. Gerd survived getting flipped off by third graders, and look at him now, right? Like you come out the other side. Yeah, look at
I hate all third graders now.
Bad kids. Steve Helwagen, Tony Gerdeman, thank you for joining us. Bill Landis, Doug Lesmerises, we're always here on Monday, and we're here the rest of the week as well. Grateful you guys are here hanging out, letting us talk football with you. Have a great Thanksgiving week. We'll have a bunch more shows here on YouTube and on the podcast feeds. Again, find us on Substack for now. For Steve, for Gerd, for Bill, I'm Doug, and that was Around the Shoe on the Bill and Doug Show.